Please welcome the Sustainability Director of easyJet, Jane Ashton, and the CEO of VisitScotland, Malcolm Roughead, in conversation with global tourism reporter at Skift, Dawit Habtemariam.
Good morning. Thank you, Brian. My name is Dawit Habtemariam, and I'm the global tourism reporter for Skift. I'm looking forward to our great chat today. We're hoping the next 20 minutes or so, we're going to come up with ideas around industry collaboration, both informal and formal partnerships around achieving greater goals. Thank you, Malcolm. Thank you, Jane. So to start off, Scotland, that was the center of climate change progress. The Glasgow Declaration was in Scotland. I understand Visit Scotland has their own marketing campaigns around sustainable tourism. We're going to play a clip real quick from one of your campaigns, Malcolm.
Yeah.
Scottish communities need both our time and our respect. Our wildlife has roamed this land for centuries. So when we roam, we need to think of them. Take only pictures and leave only footprints. And leave these special places as we found them.
So, Malcolm, can you highlight some of the mission and strategy behind your marketing campaigns, and how were they received by travelers?
Yeah, thanks, Dawit. I think the first thing is to remember just how important actually responsible tourism is to Scotland, and it's actually central to everything that we do. And to do that, obviously, we need to look at partnership and collaboration. And the Scottish tourism industry pre-COVID had just launched the new strategy, Outlook 2030. And within that, central to it was a framework for sustainable and responsible growth, which had 4 priority areas. And one was about supporting the protection and considerate enjoyment of Scotland's natural and cultural heritage, part of what you can see in this particular campaign. But it was also about ensuring that tourism and events, which are very important to us, contribute to thriving communities. And certainly once we got into Glasgow, it was very much about Scotland's transition to a low carbon economy. And the final strand for us is actually making sure that tourism is everyone's business. And I think Elke probably touched on that a little bit, so that it's inclusive and everybody has the right to enjoy the natural assets that we have to offer. So from our perspective, it was very much about getting ahead of the game, looking at regional spread, looking at seasonal spread, and trying to play a key role in the development of responsible tourism through influencing and collaborating with industry communities, our visitors, and also the wider industry, not just the tourism industry.
Thank you. So now moving on to you, Jane. Going off what Malcolm said, you lead sustainability at easyJet, the airline, as well as holidays part of it. What are you doing to achieve your, I believe, your net zero goals you're working on? Can you share a bit about that, please?
Yes, of course. And you mentioned COP26 and the momentum that was generated from those talks. And during that period, we signed up to the UNFCCC's Race to Zero, which essentially means that we've made a commitment to publish a net zero pathway aligned with the science-based target. So we worked throughout 2020, actually, with the science-based targets to create a trajectory for aviation. And that's now the basis of the net zero pathway that we've been developing at easyJet, and we'll be launching the detail of that in the near future. So you just showed our overall strategy there, which I can talk to a little bit. Just three pillars. a big focus on reducing the environmental impact of the airline today in preparation for a better tomorrow. So a huge focus on driving efficiencies, on renewing our fleet with the latest A320neo generation of aircraft, and on offsetting the residual emissions from the airline. So a massive focus currently on being as efficient as possible. But meanwhile, we're working very intensively with a huge number of partners. And on the theme of today, we're driving a number of collaborations with different types of organizations throughout the aviation value chain to pioneer future technologies for aviation and for a short-haul airline that's primarily confidence that we'll be able to fly on hydrogen propulsion from the mid to late 2030s onwards. So, and meanwhile, we will be definitely flying on sustainable aviation fuels and working with partners and governments across the UK and Europe to pioneer smarter air traffic management. That alone, if we could fly in straight lines, would enable a 10% reduction in carbon emissions from aviation. And then moving on to the third pillar, and something which I think gets underplayed in the aviation industry is the recognition that tourism can be an amazing force for good. Tourism, as we know, drives 10% of global GDP, 10% of global employment. And with the advent of easyJet holidays, which started its life just over 2 years ago, we've been able to integrate sustainability into the planning, into the thinking, into the operations, and into a number of collaborations to try to really pioneer sustainable tourism for the mainstream. It's obviously sustainability and responsible tourism has held a place within the niche tourism industry to date, but we've really sort of wanted to pioneer sustainability for the mainstream through a number of collaborations, which I'm sure we'll touch on in a minute. But I can go into detail now if you'd like in some of the collaborations which really making tourism at easyJet holidays different.
Yeah, so that gets us on to the next topic, actually. Perfect. Thank you both. So as we know, the discussion is around collaboration, right? So I'll start with Malcolm first and get back to you, Jane. But this is for both of you. So how do you both go about collaboration with other partners around sustainabilities? How do you think about it? Say if you both were in a room and I was a fly on the wall and I can hear what you were saying, what would you say exactly? I want to start with Malcolm first and then get back to you, Jane.
Yeah, I think the first thing to recognize is that everyone has a vested interest in this, and we all want to get to the same goal. So the next bit is who are the key actors within this? Who can make the difference? And very often we kind of call that a coalition of the willing. So they tend to be people for whom sustainability and responsible tourism is kind of in their DNA. And that's a lot easier then to come together to join up the dots, because as we said, none of this can be done by any one business or government on its own. It has to be a totally collective effort. And a good example, I suppose, of that would have been the visitor management piece that we pulled together when we were looking at over tourism in certain areas. And we brought together communities, we brought together enterprise agencies, the national parks, government, and also the industry. And that allowed us to create a strategic framework over a 10-year period. So we were able to deal with immediate issues, but also look at the long-term sustainability of those very often fragile and rural communities to make sure that they were part of the solution and part of the benefit of the economic and social environmental benefit, because without those communities, we wouldn't have a tourism product to offer.
Right. Thank you. And going back to you, Jane. So, of course, please speak more about the collaborations you're working on, the partners you have, and what you're doing with them. And I'd love also you to go into some detail about the work you're doing with destinations. Exactly. So please go ahead.
Yeah, so a couple of examples then of collaborations which we've been pioneering at easyJet, easyJet Holidays. Firstly, with the Travel Foundation, we have a partnership with the Travel Foundation, and I've been blessed to have been working with the Travel Foundation since it was set up actually as the world's first sustainable tourism charity probably nearly 20 years ago. The type of work we're doing with the Travel Foundation is something that the Travel Foundation has become really well known for and very adept at. And it's a really sort of unique approach to destination stewardship, whereby they bring together private, public, and local community representatives to in the same in the same room to really establish a common set of priorities for destination management, and that's particularly important, I think, to build resilience as we come out of the pandemic. So we're working with the Travel Foundation to start with in Tenerife and Portugal, and looking to replicate that in more of easyJet Holidays' core destinations. So bringing together groups within and beyond the travel industry and finding collaborative ways and common interests to deliver more sustainable tourism. So that's one collaboration which is great and will help inform easyJet Holidays' role within the destination and what they can do to help the sustainability of tourism. And then a second collaboration, which is really innovative, is with Oxford University, and they have a sustainable development lab, and we're working with them, Sustainable Development Goals Impact Laboratory, I should say, and we're working together with them and 20 of their fellows, so really super smart, bright, and innovative students or postgrads to tackle some of the biggest tourism challenges in a really innovative way. So each of those 20 fellows have been working on different initiatives, taking two destinations, Mallorca and Tenerife. And I was part of a panel which helped advise and listen to the students' ideas just recently, and a number of them are out now in destinations putting those ideas into practice. So ideas around the promotion of local culture, literature, arts, ideas around the natural world and how tourism can support innovative environmental projects, and ideas as to how tourism can diversify and ideas for sort of promoting shoulder seasons for extended stays and alternative excursions. So two very different approaches, but the key thing is working very, very closely with the communities on the ground to help shape tourism that meets their needs.
Fantastic, both of you. Now, okay, collaboration, we know it's great, we're working on it, but there are still pain points, right? There are hurdles. I mean, what are some pain points that you guys have had to deal with, to get past? Is it getting consumers on board? Is it getting investors, company boards to collaborate to get on board with what you're doing? So first, let's start with the Jane this time. So can you, please give us some, share your thoughts and insight.
I think, well, one of the things that we're really focused on is working with our hotel partners and convincing them that that they should embark on sustainability certification programs, so that we can be assured that working conditions and environmental management and support for local supply chains, etc., is all working well in those hotels. So we're a member of the Global Sustainable Tourism Council, and we are working with all our hotel partners to support them to achieve a Global Sustainable Tourism Council recognised certification, such as Travel Life, and that will bring them benefits. That will bring them reputational benefits. That will bring them employee engagement benefits. That will bring them financial benefits through better management of natural resources, etc. And we know that will give our customers an experience that is more authentic, and that's increasingly important. So that's both a challenge and then there are great benefits at the end of it when our suppliers do become certified. And we're looking at ways to then showcase that certification to our customers, so that they can feel assured. Those that are interested will be able to highlight and identify the hotels which are certified. We know that sustainability has become more and more important for customers throughout the course of the pandemic. We could see that in the research that we've done, that sustainability is still important, but customers at point of booking want some very sort of short, sharp, quick identification as to what the most sustainable option might be, because most people are more focused on booking their holiday as opposed to doing a huge amount of research. So we're trying to choice edit, I guess, and highlight more sustainable hotels.
Thank you very much, Jane. So actually, Malcolm, I actually have a question from the audience. Lori, Sialfi asks, how are you working with meetings and exhibition sectors in Scotland on improving the sustainability of business events?
Yeah, we're very fortunate. We have 3 world-class venues, one in Edinburgh, one in Aberdeen, and the other one in Glasgow. And they're at the leading edge in terms of sustainability. They're also part of the Glasgow Declares and heavily involved in the activity that's followed the COP26. So, from our perspective, we're actually in a very good place. And the key to it is that they lead by example. So they're investing heavily in terms of reducing waste, in terms of looking at food waste, also looking at, living, what we call the living wage, so making sure that people are paid fairly, that they have good working conditions as well. Transport access is also key to that. So I think, from that perspective, and just going back to the question actually that was asked about visitors and their attitudes, a lot of the research that we've done has identified actually hearts and minds and not the issue. Most people get that there is, a real challenge here, but it's behaviours, and changing behaviours is always the hardest piece. And I suspect, as we go forward, over the next couple of years, working with industry and other partners, we'll start to introduce elements of conditionality into any grants and funding, so that actually responsible tourism is at the heart of it. And whilst I have the chance, just to thank Jane and the Travel Foundation, because they've been great partners.
Fantastic. And going back to the earlier question about the pain points that that continue, the hurdles that you're still overcoming. What's still in the way that you're trying to get past exactly?
Personally, I think there's still some regulatory issues that need to be addressed. I think there's also, just in terms of planning permission can get in the way sometimes, in terms of new developments. Also, I think there's the misconception that actually to invest is actually a cost. In fact, actually what you're doing is investing in future profitability. So a lot of the actions, and this is some of the work that we're doing as part of Destination Net Zero, which is a campaign that flowed out of COP26, is about saying to people, look, if you did these 10 things, actually you'd be making a big contribution to decarbonisation. The fact is, they're probably doing 7 of them already. And then it's just sort of taking them by the hand and leading them to the next stage. And instead of sort of swamping people with so many things that they have to do, we do it in bite-sized chunks, so that you get to phase 1, then you move to phase 2, and then you move further down the line. So it's about simplification rather than making it something threatening, because particularly in Scotland, we have a small, medium enterprise dominated industry. and a lot of people are also, single owners. So we need to be able to help them in the most efficient way possible, rather than burdening them with what they might see as over bureaucratic, sort of demands on their time.
So rewinding a bit, you guys both mentioned traveler behavior at some point. So moving on, I would like to so traveler behavior is a big part of industry collaboration, right? They drive it, they're important to it. How are you guys, winning over travelers to collaborate with your stories around your eco options? How are you getting them to collaborate by picking the best options that are sustainable? How are you refining your stories? This time we'll start with Jane.
Yes, I think I mentioned already that we are heavily encouraging all our hotels to certify to a global sustainable tourism recognized certification such as Travel Life, and that's a massive commitment. I know I've been part of sort of auditing hotels in the past, and there are sort of 47 core criteria to Travel Life, spanning cultural behaviour, spanning working conditions, spanning environmental management, etc., and support for local supply chains. But it really is, they really are worthwhile programs. And then once certified, we will be highlighting to customers which hotels have certifications. So that will help customers make a more sustainable choice. So that's something that's being worked on at the moment.
Malcolm?
Yeah, it's in terms of what visitors are looking to do, we find that they're very aware of the environment that they're coming to. That's why they're coming in the first place. So it's encouraging them to be part of the solution rather than be seen as a problem. But then we also have to be able to help them, with sustainable travel when they're in Scotland. So we're looking at putting in place EV charge, electric vehicle charging points, so that if they do go around the Highlands of Scotland, they're not going to run out of electricity in the car. But it's also using other modes of transport, rail transport. It's looking at the whole connectivity in and around Scotland, and making sure that people can feel that they're contributing. But there are other ways as well. And what we do see with the research is that it's not necessarily about value-based tourism, it's about values-based tourism. And more people want to be part of that solution, and they want to leave the destination in the way that they found it. Or ideally, what we would like to see with regenerative tourism is actually contribute to it at some point further down the line.
So I'm sorry, Jane, you wanted to say something?
Well, I was just going to add, David, that one development which I think is quite interesting on the aviation front is the work that we've been doing with EASA at the EU level, which will be creating ultimately like an eco label for flights as well. So there'll be visibility on the carbon intensity or the carbon emissions generated by individual flights. So customers will have a common way of identifying, ultimately based on the same methodologies, what the carbon impact of their flight with a particular route or a particular airline will be. And I really look forward to that day, because there'll be more transparency and customers can make an informed and easy choice if reducing or managing their carbon impact is important to them.
Great. I have an audience question that I have to get to. I know time is limited, but I have to pass this along. So this is from Noel Tulin. They say, thank you, all of us. But isn't the key to all this simple, credible, sustainability, regeneration measurements that consumers can understand and relate to? Let's start with Malcolm this time.
Yeah, absolutely. Wouldn't disagree with that at all. And I think communications is absolutely key, but also consistency in terms of application.
Jane?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree as well. And I think, yes, when it comes to aviation and flights, transparency on the CO2 impact and a common methodology for communicating that when it comes to the hotel industry. That's really why the Global Sustainable Tourism Council was set up, the GSTC, to develop standards which are globally common, and certifications which reach the same quality level, so that customers ultimately have that reassurance.
Sorry, I have one more audience question, but due to time, let's move forward. So you touched on this a bit, Malcolm. Government, right? Government's involvement. So, the Travel Foundation mentioned in their previous presentation that governments, regulators are big drivers in industry collaboration. So my question to both of you is, what can they do more of? How can they improve collaboration? Can they do it? Did the Glasgow Declaration, was that helpful? Did it really help move things along? What do you hope they can do to really just, get us moving forward on collaboration? So I'll start with Malcolm this time.
Yeah, I think they can act as a catalyst, and they can certainly help bring public agencies together. But the importance is actually that it's not just the public sector that delivers this. Its industry has a huge role to play, and as does the communities that I'm talking about. Very often, part of the problem comes when people think that something's been done to them and they haven't been consulted with and their interests haven't been represented. And through various community groups and bringing them on board, you can actually get a collective solution which everybody buys into, and then together we can actually try and resolve the key issues.
Jane?
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with Malcolm that stakeholder collaboration in destinations is key. So it's not just the public sector, but the private sector and other community groups and activist groups and environmental groups and pressure groups. I mean, that's really core to the work that we've been doing with the Travel Foundation in destination, that we hear all voices and get everybody involved in coming up with the solutions. And that's I've seen that work with the Travel Foundation in the past, and it's really exciting to see the work we're doing in 5 largest easyJet holidays destinations built on that principle and that model.
So thank you both. So okay, last final question. Okay. So travel, there are silos, right? Everyone's working in their own little silo. What can we do to motivate airlines, hotels, tour operators, agencies to actually work together? To really collaborate better. What can we do? I mean, is there a way we can get a better relationships moving forward between all these stakeholders? How can we motivate action, more action? I'll start with Jane.
Yeah, well, I guess here in the UK, I think we're blessed in a way with very active trade associations where sustainability is literally, right at the top of the agenda as a topic, and the same with our airline associations, and indeed. In the UK government has brought together what's called the Jet Zero Council, which has players from all areas of the aviation industry, sustainable aviation fuel producers to engine manufacturers, to airlines, to airports, to academics and experts, all coming together to crack the nut of sustainable tourism and sustainable aviation. So we do have forums. We're seeing more action. We haven't got the solutions, but we have got some of the mechanisms that could help deliver those.
Malcolm?
Yeah, just building on what Jane said there, I think the UK government and Scottish governments are both committed to this, and sometimes being slightly small helped, because the community is easier to pull together and to get round. But it is very much about making sure, as Jane said, everyone who has an interest and who has a role to play is part of this.
Thank you both so much, and we hit time perfectly. This has been a fantastic talk. I hope to see great things moving forward. Thank you both so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.